Rotary Foundation was started in 1917 by Arch Clump, and his vision was to create an endowment for the purpose of doing good throughout the world. We as a club, Bloomington Green Rotary, have supported this foundation for over 56 years in providing annual support through our club's Nath Challenge, more recently the Nath Challenge. These funds come back to help support international projects such as a Bulls project with IVC, International Village Clinic, and also Sandia's Nari Gunjan. It also helps to promote peace, fight disease, offer clean water, save mothers and children, and supports educations and grows local economies. The co-chairs for this year include Jim Lucas, who's been very closely involved since the program's inception, along with, as you recall, former Rotarian Jim McDonald. But now we welcome a new team member, past District Governor Diann Kirby, and who I'd like to invite up to the podium to introduce our guest speaker for today, past District Governor Tim Murphy.
It is my pleasure today to introduce our speaker, Tim Murphy, past District Governor. Tim was actually president of the Diann Rotary Club in 2006 and 7, which is the same year that I was president of our club. So we've probably known each other now, Tim, for probably a decade and a half. The Rotary International motto that year was lead the way. And Tim has certainly led the way in Rotary over the years. He has served as Rotary District Governor in 2015 and 16, and currently he is serving the district as chair of the Rotary Foundation Programs and Grants Committee, and he's also on the district board of directors. And he and his wife Cindy are major donors to the Rotary Foundation. Tim's international service began all the way back in 2000 when he focused much of his philanthropic endeavors on Safe Water Plus, which is a program of District 5950 that provides clean water, sanitation facilities, and hygiene education around the globe. Over the years, Tim has traveled with Rotary programs to Chile, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Dominican Republic. And he's also made many, many trips to Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, where he expanded the Safe Water Plus program there. So I am very pleased. I think Tim, like I said, has led the way over the years for Rotary, and particularly for Safe Water Plus. And I can't think of a better speaker today to kick off our Mahendra Nath Rotary Foundation Challenge than Tim Murphy.
Thank you, past District Governor Diann. One of my slogans I use in life is "It takes one to know one." And to be a district governor is a tremendous honor, but to be a district governor following a great district governor is even a better honor. It takes a great club to make a good district governor. And I can tell you, Diann is one of my most respected peers. It was an honor to be a district governor after her, but I didn't light a candle to her, let me tell you that. I really do feel like I'm home here. Many of you I've worked with for years to accomplish what our district has in our Rotary Foundation. More importantly, like I said, you groomed a phenomenal district governor. You have groomed a district to be phenomenal foundation users and profound foundation givers. I can't thank Jim and Diann enough for having me today here to kick your foundation giving off. I said it to many of you as I came in today. I really am preaching to the choir here because Bloomington Rotary leads the way in our district by many means. And I also can't thank Mahendra enough for his massive contributions to encourage Bloomington Rotary to accomplish what you have over the years. I've got a couple of awards that I'm going to present to your club a little later on, but I'd like to first start by pointing out the programs that your club is involved in, and then we'll go into the fundraising side of it. Rotary has a tagline this year that is people of action. And I can tell you, before Bloomington Rotary knew we would have that tagline, you knew it took people of action to accomplish what you do. And by all means, you're doing that phenomenally well. You've led our district in annual fund giving, and in fact, I don't know if Jim mentioned this, your per capita giving last Rotary year was $574. It was per individual as an average in your club. Our district's average was 340 or something. You're far above average, and you were 4th in our district in overall annual fund giving. I'll start with the district, and this is not about the district, but I believe you're responsible for making our district as successful as we are, so I'm going to talk about it in general terms. And you all have seen this before. This is Rotary's 6 areas of focus. I'm not going to read them to you. It pretty much encompasses anything you could possibly want to do in your community and in the world. And over the last 11 Rotary years, Bloomington Rotary has been heavily involved in some way, fashion, or form in every one of these 6 areas of focus. These are district numbers, and what this means is last Rotary year alone, $180,000 was given by the 60 clubs in Rotary District 5950 to do $1.3 million worth of global grants. These are international projects, larger. They have to be greater than $30,000 apiece. Locally and small internationally, $140,000 of club funds was used to do $443,000 of smaller projects, district projects in your community and in the world. Bloomington Rotary alone, since it's in the past 10 Rotary years, has been involved in 24 of the global grants, totaling $2.2 million in good. 24 of them global grants in the last 10 Rotary years. 17 of those projects were in India. We partner with host clubs in other countries to do our projects, which obviously helps us make them sustainable. We have people on the ground in that country. We also collaborate or partner with a third-party organization. Bloomington Rotary is fortunate to have 2 profound third-party implementing partner organizations. I don't have to tell you who they are. They're your club members, Sandhya and Abul. But of those 24 projects, 17 of them, you've done projects not only in India, of them 24, you've done them in Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Panama, and Honduras. And as I mentioned, what makes Rotary so successful is collaboration. Our incoming president, I just heard him, Rotary International president is Mark Maloney. And where I was over the weekend, he spoke for the first time. His whole theme evolves around collaboration. Because this is Terry's year, it's a different theme, so I won't use it yet. So it'll break protocol. And I don't want to irritate Terry. Going back to 1997, you've leveraged your giving 38 times through district projects for a total of $400,000. Remember I said $2.2 million is what your projects globally have accomplished? Now on the district side, which is small international projects and small community projects, you've done 38 projects for a total of $400,000. 18 of those projects were in your local community. Most of them were in Bloomington or immediately around surrounding Bloomington. 20 were international again. Over the course of your grant history using the Rotary Foundation programs, you've leveraged your giving dollars into $2.6 million. That's just Bloomington Rotary. This is not, I should explain the pictures that are up here. This is not a project trip. This is a friendship exchange trip. I always like to point out that in addition to doing good in the world and service, one of the goals of Rotary is to build goodwill, peace, and understanding. Friendship exchange is one of them. You'll notice a couple familiar faces in this. This was a youth exchange that Diann and Don and Bob were all on from your club. What year was it, Diann?
2013.
2013. Building goodwill and better understanding in India. And of course, they did visit the project sites while they were there. This is a project that your club participated in Honduras. Past District Governor Jim Nelson uses it as an example. Your club was a big part of this in sponsorship. Steve Solbreck coordinated this through St. Louis Park Rotary, but there were 27 clubs in our district involved to make this project happen. It was $800,000 alone. These are just some pictures of that project. I always like to point out, and if you have had Jim Nelson speak, he probably has used this same picture. This elderly lady has survived living in a village that did not have sanitary water and watched children die year after year after year until Rotary came and gave them water, and she tells the story in Honduras. And you can see the water source in that one of the villages is on the left, and on the right lower is the new water source in Honduras. I'd just like to throw this in. You were involved in this project in Uganda way back when. If you look really close, you'll see past Rotary International Vice President Tom Thorfinson. He is he's officially still Eden Prairie Rotarian. He now is on staff at Rotary International in Evanston, but Tom visited some of our project sites while he was over there a few years back. I always like to point out the Peace Scholar program. It's a program, the Peace Scholars are funded by the money that Rotary keeps that we don't get back, and I'll explain that in a minute. These are our 5 global scholars from recent years, and on the lower is our 7 Peace Scholars. There's no club contributions or district contributions of the dollars you give and they keep. It funds these scholarships. 50 Peace Scholars are given out worldwide per year. District 5950, because of our generosity in giving, has sponsored 7 of them in the last 10 years. There is not another district in the world that comes close to that. Think about it, 1.2 million Rotarians and 36,000 Rotary Clubs, 538 districts. Our district has 7 Peace Fellows, 4 Global Scholars. I mention the Global Scholars because they now are funded. Some of you may remember ambassadorial scholarships. Now they're called Global Scholars, and it's a global grant. So we are still doing ambassadorial scholars, only we use global grants to fund them. Before I get there, I'm going to go back. So you give this year. Rotary is going to keep that money for 3 years. Why would you give today to have them keep your money for 3 years? You give today, they use that money, the return on the investment pays the majority of the expenses of the Rotary Foundation to keep us as efficient as we are. 3 years later, they give half of that money back to us as a district. In the average year, our district gives somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000. We've averaged for the last 7 or 8 years now. We've neared $1 million a couple of times, but we average. So we get around $400,000 to $450,000 back every year. We take that money and we split it in half. We give half of it to Mary. I'm being sarcastic. We give half of it to Mary's committee, which is global grants. The other half goes to district grants. Call it an average of a couple $100,000 a year. That's the money your club then uses. Your club's foundation seeds a project. You go to the district and we match them dollars. And then we go back to the other half that the Rotary Foundation kept, and we get a match from them. That's, again, 1.5 times the district. So basically, and our district does a lot better than this, for every dollar you give, we turn it into $3.50 at a minimum, with no collaborating partners or no further giving from the club, to do good in the world, both on the district grant side and on the global grant side. And we point that out because it's a leverage factor. On top of that, we get to choose where we spend that money. And by we, not the district. Every Rotary project comes out of a club. So the 38 district grants Bloomington Rotary chose, and the 24 global grants Bloomington Rotary chose, or they're partners with the other Rotary clubs around them. I happen to be our zone's End Polio Now coordinator. I have to put in a plug for polio. Very often we hear why. We haven't seen polio in the years for 50 years. Why are we still? And why is it still our #1 cause? It is because we can't give up the $14 billion investment all of Rotary and our partners have made in the last 30 years would all be gone to waste if we don't get rid of it. And you've heard recent statistics. We started 30 years ago at 350,000 cases per day. Last year, 350,000 cases per year. Last year, 33 in the world. So far this calendar year, 6. I'd like to always point out too, the #1 question when you ask a donor to give to Polio Plus is how come Rotary never gets the credit? We do, and it's gotten better. You all know there's a new public image effort, but the collaboration to eradicate polio in the world was started by Rotary 33 years ago. It actually was started a little longer than that in the Philippines, but it was formalized 33 years ago. And about 15 years ago, an organization called GPEI, Global Polio Eradication Initiative, was formed. That is Rotary, the World Health Organization, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, and UNICEF. So there's 5 organizations that pool their resources to make up GPEI. The reason Rotary isn't always #1 is because first on that list of giving of the $14 billion I mentioned is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which you all know matches every Rotary donation 2 to 1. They're first at over $3 billion. The US government is second at over $2 billion, and Rotary is third of the 5 at almost $2 billion now. So we have to share the glory to raise the funds. But I can tell you, and what I need to emphasize, Rotary is the feet on the ground in all of them countries doing NIDs around the world. Our 1.2 million Rotarians are the feet on the ground that accomplish the goal. And Rotary did start. And all of the other organizations jumped on board because of the effectiveness of Rotary International. Bloomington Rotary, last year alone, $8,200 or $8,300 in contributions to Polio Plus alone. That is a club effort and contribution above and beyond each of your individual contributions to the annual fund. I always like to point this out, a little bragging. District 5950 is one of 12 districts in Zone 28, and we are paired with Zone 29, which is another 16 districts. So 28 districts in our geographical area of the upper Midwest has a zone conference every year, and they recognize the districts in our zone for different factors of giving. District 5950, for as long as I have been involved in Rotary, has always been #1 in every category, short of a few years in Polio Plus. Last Rotary year, all 4 categories were District 5950's. That is total giving to the Rotary Foundation, that is annual fund giving, which we're here today for, that is Polio Plus, and endowed fund. All 4 categories we received awards for, and these are some of your past district leadership the last 3 years receiving them awards. We're #1 out of 28 districts in the world. Twice in the last 10 years, we've been in the top 10 in the world. We've never been #1. but in the top 10 districts of the world. That's 538 districts. And you live and give and are a huge part of that. Bloomington Rotary is a huge part of it. Here's your history for the last 4 years. Notice the nice jump last year. I know Mahendra wants that jump to be even greater this year, and I would bet Jim and Diann do too, and it sounds like you're off to a phenomenal start. This is the annual fund alone. This does not include endowed fund or Polio Plus. How do you accomplish that? You accomplish that with a tremendous team that goes even beyond Diann and Jim and Mahendra. Your member, Carolyn Pratt, is responsible in our district for Paul Harris Society members. I believe Jim alluded to you have 47 Paul Harris Society, Paul Harris Fellows. You have 21 Paul Harris Society members. Those are individuals that make a commitment to give $1,000 a year to the Rotary Foundation. Do the math. 21,000 of last year's giving of 42 was from those 21 members. Thank you all, whoever you are. It's amazing. Carolyn, thank you for. District-wide, 316. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the superstars in your club that not only lead to your club's phenomenal achievement in foundation giving, but also to our districts. When I opened, I said, I feel like I'm at home. And these are the people I've gotten to work with beyond your club that have become great friends. Carolyn is our Paul Harris Society chair for District 5950. I just shared with you those numbers. Carolyn has been Paul Harris Society chair for 5 years. I think she's still going to continue into the future. We don't know how long that future is, but we need to thank her. Bob Erickson is our vocational training team chair. That used to be known as Group Study Exchange. Bob, how many have you hosted now? 2 VTTs?
We did the one in Germany, and then that was 2 or 3.
Yeah, but he's been our VTT chair since 2015, and he still is. And again, we don't know how much longer he will. On the far right is our global grant chair. Mary not only has been global grant chair, she started in Bob's position in 14-15 and did that for 1 year. Then she moved into our district grant treasurer, who she's been for 2 years, 16 through 18. She's currently global grant chair. This is her last year as that, and she will move into programs chair. So she's going to try and fill my shoes, which is going to be an easy job. So she's going.
Very hard.
And of course, I mentioned your superstar, my peer, Diann Kirby. She not only has been a phenomenal district governor in District 5950, she was our Area 3 Assistant Governor Coordinator from 2009 to 2011. She was District Conference Co-Chair. She was District Conference Co-Chair in 2009, 2010 with Paul Moody. And Diann, you were District Governor in 13-14, just before Jim Nelson, I believe. And of course, Don Stiles, who I have really worked closely with for a long time. Don has a really long history. Don was asked back in 2005 by preceding district governor, Dan Barnett, that many of you know and remember. Dan is deceased now, just last year, I believe, to be the Strive chair for the district. Bloomington Rotary has been a profound Strive supporter for many years. Don did that for 3 years. Don then went into grants and has not gotten out. He was district grant chair and actually developed the process and the documentation to make us so successful as we are from 2008 to 2011. Then he was global grant chair for 1 year. Then he went into district grant subcommittee chair, which is the body that's responsible for the dollars that we give away, both globally and locally. Then he became our District Rotary Foundation chair, and He's still currently district grant treasurer, and he will be through 2022. And he's actually, Don, what are you next year? Programs chair. So thank you, Bloomington Rotary, for grooming some profound people to not only help your club be as successful as you have been, but also to help. I have to put a plug in for the body that you're giving the money to, which is the Rotary Foundation. Charity Navigator consistently year after year rates us as a 4. 4 doesn't sound like much, but that's the highest you could get, 4 stars. 91 cents of every dollar currently is going. We hope to increase that if money ever becomes more valuable than it is today. That return on the investment will pay a bigger gap of that. But year after year after year, Rotary's overall ranking by Charity Navigator and all of the other gauges of large foundation categories is rated 98 to 100%. The lowest I've seen it in the last 5 years is 97.5%. In many years, we maintain a 100% rating, both for what we do with the money and for the finance of it. So you cannot give to a more effective foundation. This is a picture, I'm not even sure where it's from. It came off of one of your club slides, so you probably have seen it before. I'm guessing Don gave it to me. I have to put in a plug for Hamburg. Jim just told me, how many? 4 or 5 of you are going? President Mark Maloney just yesterday put a huge emphasis not only on collaboration, as I alluded to earlier, but making Rotary more family friendly. So I put my wife on here with me because my 3 kids have moved out of the nest, so Cindy and I are on there. But we'll join Jim and 3 or 4 more of you, along with, so far, I believe 60 others of District 5950 in Hamburg. And again, to build peace and goodwill with 125 other countries and somewhere around 25,000 Rotarians. So on behalf of our district, consider going to Hamburg. With that, I'm probably early, but I'd like to leave it open for questions because my guess is I've confused you as much as I've helped you. So if you have any questions, I'd love to address them.
I am sure that many of us are quite concerned with the unrest and all the awful things happening globally. So I have one question. What are the Peace Scholars doing? Do they have impact on this? And in particular in Central and Latin America, I keep wondering why the United Nations isn't doing anything. But is Rotary in a position to address some of the atrocities going on and try to help people?
Absolutely phenomenal question. So, direct answer to that, I can't give you in that specific area of the world. I can in general. The reason Rotary funds those Peace Scholars and pays 100% of it is because they are so effective. Of our 7, so far, a few of them are still in school. And this is an extension to usually a degree they already have that has a specific focus at 5 universities in higher education institutions throughout the world. They go specifically to learn about peace and conflict resolution and hopefully enter a career. Of the 7, 3 of ours are already in those careers. Many of them are United Nations affiliates. They don't go to the United Nations, but they help with peace and conflict resolution throughout the world. It is so effective. You may have heard too, ambassadorial scholars, we were paying for scholarships for students to go to higher education institutions around the world, and they weren't even joining Rotary and coming back. It's part of the reason we restructured and it went to be global scholars. Peace Scholars is so effective in accomplishing what you're asking about that it is. I can't give you specific institutions, but I can tell you that the reason they continue to fund it is because they are going into professions that directly accomplish that goal. Terry.
What metric is being used for true success for polio eradication? With 30 plus, that just occurred, are we looking at a metric of 0? How will we determine when we move on to, let's say, a clean water project?
it has to be zero, and it has to remain zero in every country for 3 years. As soon as the country is designated endemic, it has to go 3 years without another case. We actually had Nigeria go 3 years, it came back. So, it's not endemic yet, but we're waiting out another 3 years. There's only 2 countries of the world that remains. It's Pakistan and Afghanistan, the 33 cases. Many people ask, why can't we just confine that area? Well, it's the most remote, hardest to get to areas of the world. It could be a huge geographical area, and they migrate over borders. If one of them got on an airplane and flew to the United States, conceivably we could have polio back here. Now, we still vaccinate, so the chances are really rare, and we haven't had it for 50 years. But that's basically the reason, Terry. So, and the costs are tremendous as they used to be before. Previous to, 33 cases, how can we spend the money we are? They had, it was hoped originally that we would have eradicated polio. When Bill and Melinda Gates jumped on the bandwagon, he thought, and the Gates Foundation thought, we'd be 2 or 3 years. And that was 11 or 12 years ago now. But, he's with us. It will be the second disease in the world to ever been eradicated off the face of the earth. It's kind of personal to me, and I better say this because I'll get emotional when I talk about it. My father was a polio survivor. He was a fortunate one. He outlived his 7 siblings by 14 years. Dad just died in December. He was the first to be treated at the Sister Kinney Institute in Minneapolis. I think polio made him a fighter. He lived to be 86 years old, and his closest sibling died at 72. So I have a little bit of a passion about polio. And that's probably why but thank you for asking.
Tim, it's
Bob.
more of a comment that you can amplify it too. One of the things that we talk about in our board meetings and things about giving to these things is that each different person has different abilities to give. Some people are in a situation where they've got a lot of family responsibilities and things, so we're looking for participation. And nobody should feel that they have to write a check that's averages or something else. What they need to do is give whatever works with their circumstances to the club, and that's why we have the 100% challenge to do that. And if people have greater ability to give, then they can give. And so,
thank you, Bob. That brings up a good point. Bloomington Rotary, obviously, by the examples I gave you, has a very diverse project portfolio. You've done tremendous amounts of good in your community. You've done tremendous amounts with district grants internationally and tremendous amounts globally. Every Rotarian has a passion in a different area. Polio Plus, if you give to Polio Plus, they keep it all and they spend it right away. It's not kept for 3 years. Annual fund giving that we're here for today is the fund that's kept. But your money is deployed immediately. Remember, the efficiency of our foundation is accomplished by the foundation keeping it and using the return on the investment. All your money is spent where you want it to be as a club. If you have a passion for youth in your community, if you have a passion for Strive, if you have a passion for any other area of the world, you are the best project that Rotary could do because you're spending your own money. But great point. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else? Diann.
Did you want to give us an update on the little boy that you met in the slums of Nairobi, Kenya, and your club later adopted, and Angela Wandera was also very instrumental in helping him out. You want to talk a little bit about Moses?
Moses Mawara. Angela was very involved. She's still on the committee. Moses is now 15 years old. He's got gleaming bright teeth because of Angela Wandera. Every time Moses has been here, she's worked on it, and she has arranged dental care in Kenya for him also. Moses will enter secondary school, which is what grade, Angela? 8th grade next year?
Yeah, something like 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah. I think he's a year behind. I think David just told me. Moses is attending Green Garden School, funded by a trust that many Rotarians in District 5950 have given. You may all remember in 2010, we brought Moses back here to have eye muscle surgery. That's not the official name for it, but that's what I call it, because he was severely cross-eyed. Past District Governor Sandy Schley interacted with him on a trip in 2007. And all of Moses' expenses were in kind. It wasn't a Rotary grant, it wasn't a Rotary project. Angela donated dental and a lot of care for Moses beyond that. And there were 11 other Rotarians in some way, fashion, or form made contributions towards his eye muscle surgery. He was with us for 9 days back in 2010. Moses just was back last December, visited your club, in fact, now that you mention it, Diann, in his first trip back here. So he would have been 14 last year when he was here. We keep in touch with Moses regularly. He's thriving. We don't know where he'll move. Green Garden School does not has a secondary, or has a, Angela, help me, is it secondary school?
Equivalent to high school.
Equivalent to high school, but only for ladies. So Moses can't go to Green Garden next year, and we're not sure where Moses will go next year. But the trust that was set up will pay for his kindergarten through 12th grade education. So a large group of Rotarians from District 5950 have funded his continuing education at a private school in Kenya, Green Garden School. But Moses is thriving. Our hope was that Moses would be the president of Kenya someday. So Angela, I don't know if he'll make it quite there, but he's a rising star, and you all evidenced that when he was here. He's kind of a ham. So anything else? I'm getting the boot.
Well, if you have any additional questions, will you be staying after the meeting?
I will, but I have one more thing I got to do.
Okay.
Sorry. These have been in somebody in our district's care, custody, and control since last year. But this is recognition for the 13th year in a row of being a 100% giving club. So this comes from Rotary International on behalf of the district. And this really makes us seem, so it shows where we're at. They give an award if you average $100 per member per capita. Remember, Bloomington Rotary is 574. I think they should have given you a banner that had the real number on it, but this is recognition for being a 100% giving club and achieving $100 per capita per member. And I'll give them to Terry. Mahendran's gone, he should get them too.
And we'll share these with Deb when she returns next week. She couldn't be with us today. Yeah. But thank you very much, Tim. We appreciate it.
Thank you.